Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, right there in the center ring, the one, the only, John King.
Good morning.
And over here, it's the elderly, what's his name?
That guy.
You can't remember his name anymore. So I understand we have, I went to this little soiree last night.
Did you?
Put on by the Missoulian, and
yeah, some people must know your name.
And the best of Missoulian. They had the big votes in December, and please call me to task. I don't believe during the entire time this voting was going on, did I ever on the air ask anybody to vote for me? No, I didn't.
And you still went number 2.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. Phrasing.
Come on now. But it was really cool. Our two of our Town Square media people, Aaron Traylor with 107.5 Zoo FM, America's tallest DJ, ladies and gentlemen, was number 1. I was number 2, and the former Town Square media guy, who's now with those other guys, Craig Johnson, came in at number 3.
Yeah.
So there you go. And the number 1 radio station, according to Missoulian online voters, was 107.5 Zoo FM. So good. It's kept it right here in the old Town Square media family. So
yeah, we like that. So congrats to Aaron and to Peter.
Absolutely. Big fun. And I actually got, as a prize for coming in number 2, I had some very unusual hors d'oeuvres at that little soiree. I had to ask what they were. And they're
like, sir, that... You're like, do you have any Doritos or do you have any
Cheetos?
Cookies?
Just give me the Cheetos, okay? Don't show me all this nonsense with, it was like a toothpick about 8 inches long with all sorts of things, kind of like a kebab onto it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't identify a single thing that was on that kebab. And the gal said, just eat it. Trust me, you'll like it. So anyway.
So did you eat it? Did you like it?
I did. It was like...
But Peter did not like
it. But
were there not enough preservatives?
Well, please...
Could you dip this in formaldehyde before I bite it?
Please keep in mind, okay, I am not used to eating grown-up food, okay? I'm not used to eating, going to fancy parties and having all sorts of hors d'oeuvres, which I can't even spell.
I know that Peter goes to a fancy party at least 2 or 3 times a year, just on awards banquets alone.
But that's just chicken. That's just chicken and mashed potatoes, man. That's not funky hors d'oeuvres. But anyway, so congratulations, by the way, to all the winners. I understand Matt's Family Chiropractic came in at number 1, the best chiropractor.
Adir's Jewelers came in at number 1.
Cool. Way to go. So if you have a favorite that won and you would like to tout them, although the general public won't have this insert in their Missoulian until Sunday. So we have. So if you would like to know, for instance, which dentist's office came in first, or which barista, or
they have some really heavy
television personalities.
If you are on the edge of your seat waiting to know who is the best mattress store in Missoula.
Really?
We know.
The best mattress store?
The best place for solo dining.
Wow. Solo dining? Yeah. You mean eating alone?
I just want to spend a lot of money on myself. So I don't. Okay. Have you ever been solo dining? I'm not sure. Okay, I guess I've gone through the fast food drive-in, right? But I don't know if I've ever had a sit-down meal in a restaurant.
I have.
Really?
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Treat yourself.
That's right.
Treat yourself.
And you have a nice conversation with yourself. Well, just scare the hell out of everybody. How you doing? I'm fine. How are you? I'm doing good.
Well, speaking of people not being treated fairly,
yes, okay.
This is a common theme of the president's campaign during the midterms that we just had recently.
Right.
He was out on the campaign trail. One of the mantras that he was running was this issue of the pay disparity between men and women. Go ahead and play one of those. It's in there. It says I have
Obama on pay gap.
There you go. Go ahead and play that.
Right, here we go. This is President Barack Obama.
Hi, everybody. This week I visited a community college in Florida, where I spoke with students about what we need to do to make sure our economy rewards the hard work of every American. More specifically, I spoke about making sure our economy rewards the hard work of women. Today, women make up about half of our workforce and more than half of our college graduates. More women are now their family's main breadwinner than ever before. But in a lot of ways, our economy hasn't caught up to this new reality yet. On average, a woman still earns just 77 cents for every dollar a man does. And too many women face outdated workplace policies that hold them back.
Okay.
All right.
So there you go. You get 77 cents on every dollar. I don't know about you, but I question the statistic. You know, you talk to your family, you talk to your wife, you talk to the people that you work around. Are women really making that? Now, I'm one of those obnoxious guys. My first, after I've settled into an office environment, and Peter knows this, actually did this, you know this.
Yes.
I come around and I ask, how much are you making? How much are you making? Yes. What do you make here?
He's never asked me that.
I have.
Oh, you did? I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you.
You didn't tell me.
No.
But I asked everybody else and I figured out what you made.
Okay.
All of this so that I could go and talk to my boss and ask for just a little bit less than what Peter makes.
Hey.
Which I think is a fair.
I think you should make every bit as much as I make.
Well, I'll go tell the boss that next year. Hold on.
Which ain't much.
Got to build some steam first.
Yes, there you
go.
go.
So anyway, I did that. I got a pay raise.
He's a cheeky fellow.
That's part of being an employee. If you're going to sit there and work for someone, it's an at-will contract. If you're going to work for someone, you might as well get paid what you think you deserve for the job that you're doing, right?
Exactly.
Right? Well, okay, so anyway, the bad news for a lot of Democrats right now kind of hit at the same time that this whole Giuliani, Obama doesn't love America thing, right? Okay, but I think it's important to talk about, and we haven't hit it yet. So Hillary Clinton's campaign pays less than the national average, which I believe is a bogus statistic that Obama thinks that women get paid compared to men. So in the Obama world, right, you have 70 cents on every dollar that women are getting paid less. Well, in the Hillary Clinton campaign, it's 72 cents on every dollar that women are getting paid less. And for many people, including the women in The View, Whoopi Goldberg, for example, says it's like a bad fart. So go ahead and roll that, because
is this the one that says Hillary stiffs women?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
The salaries of Hillary Clinton's senatorial staff were released, and it showed that her female employees were paid 72 cents each on each dollar that her male employees were paid. So apparently they're saying now
damaging.
Well, unless you know what the jobs were, were the men who got paid more, were they in jobs where they earned? I mean, it's hard to know. It's like a bad fart. You put it out, and it wafts, and people go, oh, you did it. Nobody knows. Right. No, because is anybody telling us who got paid what for what?
No, we don't know the exact details, but I have to be honest that I love Hillary.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, oh no, this doesn't look good.
It
does not look good.
No.
We've been talking about pay equality so much, and here, pardon my ignorance, but this is what I don't understand. If you're working for a company and there are a bunch of men around, how are you supposed to know what to ask for if you don't know what they make? I mean, it doesn't feel like it's appropriate to how much are you making? Like,
he's not going to tell you.
How are you even supposed to know what to ask?
And the law of the land is already equal pay for equal work. So there's no one suggesting that Hillary Clinton broke the law. And this is, I never thought a Democrat candidate for the nomination for president would be the one giving us a lesson on this. But the problem with the argument that Democrats and liberals make about equal pay is it's impossible to know if the women had the same job and the same job experience as the men.
Yes.
Maybe they made 72 cents to the dollar because they didn't have the same title. Maybe one was the press secretary and the other was the deputy.
Yes,
you don't know.
Whew.
So there you go.
Was that The View?
That was The View.
Okay,
yeah.
I was just curious because I began to have a very sharp spike going through my head after about 30 seconds.
It's hard for me because The View sounds very similar to my dinner table when all of the family's there, because everyone's talking over each other. And I don't know about your family, but with strong opinions like we have at our house, everybody disagrees. I mean,
absolutely.
You basically, it's like Parliament in like Israel or Europe, where you make alliances on issues, but then after that issue is over, you go back to fighting.
Bull, sir, bull.
So anyway,
bull.
Before we hit the break, I want to know from the audience: do you think that it's fair or unfair for the women in Hillary Clinton's campaign to only make 72 cents for every dollar that the men make? And does that show any kind of hypocrisy? I mean, this is a woman that has been running with as a kind of a campaign issue that she fights for women and girls. So I don't know.
She's been running for president since
I will
2008.
I will tell you this: if it were Walker or Bush or one of these other characters had come out and found out that there was a pay gap like that's
Right.
worse than the national average, I'm sure there would be a headline about
It would be front page news, but it's not for.
Well, it's definitely hitting. It's on the View. That's like the front page.
That is like bad gas, ladies and gentlemen.
Anything with Whoopi saying the word fart, I think it's maybe even more than the front page.
I'm going to check and see if the FCC are going to allow us to say that word, because it is a 4-letter
and it does start with
F. And
F.
it does start with F. Okay, we're coming right back with more in a moment. Peter Christian, math genius. Okay, see, the problem is when I did that story at about 3:30 this morning, I wasn't able to take both my shoes and socks off and count the
Right.
number of votes needed to override a
and he also
presidential
doesn't
veto.
have 7 digits on each
Right,
hand,
exactly.
so it gets tough sometimes in here.
We were just told by one of our wonderful listeners, and by the way, we appreciate it when you do this because we want to be right about the things we report. So the number of votes needed to override a presidential veto is not 60, it's 67. And so from what I understand, there's still about 4 votes short for overriding the president's veto of the Keystone XL Pipeline, which occurred yesterday.
Yeah, what did you think about that? I was actually at the University of Montana watching Bullock give a speech on campaign finance reform, and I was speaking with some of the university students, and this guy come up to me, and we were chatting a little bit, and I got kind of the tweet that it had happened while I was there, and so I said, hey, what do you think about this whole Keystone XL being, getting the kibosh, the veto from the president, which, by the way, I think is his first veto in like 5 years, right?
It's only the 3rd veto of all his presidency.
So, yeah, he's had a pretty easy walk there on the whole veto front. But anyway, the student said, you know what, I'm really excited about this. This is great. And he kind of went on. And now this is a guy, I believe, had been involved in the Tester campaign prior. And as we all know, Tester's been a supporter of Keystone XL, campaigned on that.
So he says.
Oh, yeah, well. He did have that one kind of flippy-floppy vote, but
Yes, he did.
pretty much otherwise he's been consistent on it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the students at the university see it as a really big bad thing for a number of reasons. So I asked them what were the reasons. Number one, most of that fuel is going to be sent overseas or to other countries, right? Number two, that the fuel is the dirtiest fuel.
Dirty oil.
Yeah, it's dirty oil from the
Dirty.
tar sands.
Yes.
Number three, it's only going to cause, and then the number changes, but X number of jobs, and those number of jobs are only going to be temporary. And so I look at them for a little while. I mean, those are great arguments. You know, I can understand a lot of that. But let me ask you this. Do you think that they're going to stop getting oil out of the tar sands? No. Okay, so then if they're not going to stop, then you still have the same environmental degradation on that end. Now, how are they going to ship it? By train? You think that's safer than by pipeline? Well, I don't know. I'd say let's just say that's an even risk, okay? Except for that train cars explode and kill people when they do. But let's just say it's an even risk. Then let's go to the third thing. Yeah, there's temporary jobs, but have you thought about property taxes? Especially in the state of Montana. I think they're estimating $26 million for property taxes in the state of Montana, which is a substantial amount when you're talking about especially what property taxes go to pay for. If you've ever been in an environment where you have a public school system that needs more funding, property taxes go to help pay for that. Property taxes pay for a lot of things. And in a state like Montana, where we don't have sales taxes, property taxes are kind of jacked up a little bit to cover more issues. So having some rich Canadian oil company pay it seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Well, let's get...
I'd like to hear what you guys think.
Let's do that. Let's get Harry on the line. Harry, thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good morning. I wanted to comment on the pipeline, but first, John, you said you doubt the women's thing. I always have, question that too. But how come you throw it out there and say, well, see, Hillary's doing it. Why don't you doubt that statistic too?
I'm sorry, which one?
I'm sorry. He was answering a phone call when you were speaking, Harry. Could you repeat
go ahead.
your comment?
I'm sorry. He said something about Hillary's campaign and why.
Yeah, you said you doubted the numbers when they come to women's wages.
Yeah.
overall, but then you throw it out there and say, well, Hillary's doing this. Well, how can we just say, I doubt that too, and then leave it at that instead of, use it to beat her about the head with it.
Oh, that's a good point. I basically think that they're both probably false numbers, and I think that the only point here to be made is that they're hypocritical in using the standard when it's in favor of the campaign, but not when it's against.
Yeah, so I think that would have been the thing to say instead of
so
say, well,
the cause for pay disparity, I believe, especially when you come to that 70, and I don't know what the analysis was for the 72 number. I have looked into the number for the 77, which is the national. And in that, they basically straight up just grabbed male and female wages across the country. They took no concern for what the type of jobs or employment those earners have.
I always question that too. I always, they comparing apples to apples to oranges. But like I say, then to throw it against Hillary, I think that's being disingenuous.
No, I'm not the one who came up with that, right? That was Whoopi Goldberg
but
bringing that point up.
It, though.
I am repeating it because I think it's important to talk about. If you're going to run on fairness for women and pay them less, and not have a good excuse.
See, now you're doing it in. Are they paying it less? I mean, you just said, well, you doubt that the wage thing is overall. Then you say, well, then she's paying it less. Well,
I would think, Harry.
The same?
I would think, Harry,
because,
if Hillary Clinton was not paying less, then the first thing she would have done is issue a press release saying, here's what I pay my staff. So there. But we haven't heard from her yet. So.
Well, basically, what she said is the same thing. They have responded.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say Hillary Clinton's campaign has responded, and they said something similar to what many companies in America say. We pay different wages based on different experience and different jobs.
There you go.
And it's the same thing that the president's office said. Josh Earnest, his spokesman, said when it was brought about. Well, you only get paid 88 cents on the dollar for everyone. Now, here's my point, Harry. I'm not accusing the president of not being fair to women necessarily, but what I'm accusing him and Hillary of is being hypocritical in using a fake standard for all businesses and other corporations when they're not willing to abide by those standards when it comes to themselves and come up with the same excuses that the public comes up with.
I think you're just doing the same thing that you accuse the mass media of doing. I mean, you just do it because it's against Hillary. That is okay. But anyway, back to Keystone. I keep hearing about jobs, but what makes more jobs? Building a pipeline or running a train or shipping by truck? That creates a heck of a lot more jobs. Continuous job if you're doing it by train or by trucks. I mean, and they're going to be there forever as long as you keep shipping oil that way. That's making more jobs. So isn't that a better way to make jobs?
Well, think about this. My dad's a train driver, so I have a little bit of a horse in this race. When you're shipping oil by rail, what are you not shipping by rail? You only have so much rail line. What you're not shipping, oftentimes.
So that makes even more jobs.
Hold on, what you're not shipping.
Shipped. I mean, it's not going to just disappear. Something's got to be shipped. It's got to be shipped.
Okay, fellas. Okay, hold on, fellas. I'm really sorry about this. I'm the commercial sheriff. I got to jump in here. It's a good discussion. I wish we had more time, but we got to take a break. So
got it.
Come right back.
I will respond after the break.
Stay with us.
I have a good response.
Oh, we went late in that segment. And so real quickly, John, if you want to just wrap up before we get to Catherine.
Yeah, when you're running fuel on the trains, what you're not running oftentimes is grain or other products that have spoilage dates,
right?
Which can hurt jobs.
All right, so there you go. Catherine, you're on Talkback. We have exactly 2 minutes. Go.
Okay, 2 points. Kind of jobs with regard to women's, salaries. The kind of jobs that are taken, IT versus HR as an example. Women are more likely to drop in and out of the employment market for a significant portion of their work lives. And they also have more part-time work. So you cannot do an hour-by-hour salary comparison without taking those things into account. Keystone. Remember that BNSF has the contract for hauling the tar sands oil. BNSF is, of course, owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and Berkshire Hathaway is controlled by Warren Buffett, who also happens to be a huge Democrat donor. So, whose back is getting scratched there. So,
those
that's
are
it.
Excellent points.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's worth noting that not in the least being self-serving at all, the fact that BNSF Railway would be hauling all that oil.
So you think it's a conspiracy between Berkshire Hathaway.
Let's put it this way. It has taken President Obama. How long has he been in office? 7 years?
Yeah, but
6.5 years?
Keystone's only been up for 5, I think.
Well, still, but how long does it take for the State Department to examine whether or not the Keystone XL Pipeline is going to cause damage? Give me a break. Take a picture from Google Earth and take a look down there and say there's a whole bunch of rivers. Okay, it'll take about a month to get that done.
Pretty sure the environmental analysis is more deep than a picture.
But let me tell you, it's bollocks. Anyway, we're and if President Obama were here, I probably wouldn't say that.
We started with farts and we end with bollocks.
We're going to take our break.
We've talked about
special guests in the studio at the top of the hour. Okay, we are shifting gears a little bit now, and although we had a little fun with the Keystone XL Pipeline, because I did point out, all right, that if you look at a map, it starts in Canada and goes all the way down to Texas. It's all downhill. You could make a huge, greasy slip and slide out of it and charge lots of admission, and that would pay for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. It'd be like floating the Clark Fork, but a little bit more extreme.
It'd be a lot more fun, too.
Well, shifting gears very significantly away from things that we have almost no control over, like the amount of pay that Hillary's staff gets or Keystone XL. Yeah. I wanted to talk about something that you have a lot of control over if you live in Missoula County. Right now, Missoula County is working on a growth plan, maybe an update or possible changes to the rules and regulations we have for growth in the area. I'm going to have some experts on to kind of talk about that. So in studio we have, make sure I get these right. We got Kaylee and Karen Hughes, and Kaylee, is it Becher? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Kaylee Becher, who has the greatest title maybe of anyone that's ever been on our show. And that includes governor, president, whatever. Rural landscape scientist. So we'll find out what that means.
Very
and then Karen
cool.
Hughes is the assistant director at the Community and Planning Services here in the county of Missoula. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, good to have both of you on. Now you came loaded with paperwork here. So tell me about this study that you guys have been working on, obviously for a while, right?
Sure. We really got underway in the fall of this year with having a variety of community listening sessions to identify key values and issues the community wants addressed in the coming years. And we're now at the point of reporting back what we heard so far and talking about where the community wants to go. How do we want to address these issues, whether it's the natural environment, clean water, clean air, or what our communities are like, community character, or our local economies, whether it's the core economy in the city of Missoula or out in the rural areas, how we can support economic activities in those areas.
And this is what's really cool, because usually you have these public discussions, people can chime in and tell you what they think about different things. And how many people do you usually have at a regular meeting for this sort of thing?
I think we get between 10 and 20, I'd say, for most of our meetings, but there's...
So I want to times that by 10,000. Well, maybe not that. What is it? We got 20,000 listeners
we
or so?
We average between 20 and 25,000 listeners.
So we got a lot of people that live in the Missoula area that are concerned about growth listening right now, and we want to hear your concerns. But first, before we get that, I wanted, if you could catch us up. We've been through phase 1, right? And phase 1 was basically kind of the goals, if I understand it right, of what we want for Missoula County. So could you kind of lay out what the public told you as far as the goals that they want?
So we heard a lot, as I said, about community values, and we've tried to translate those into draft goals. And we're now at the point where people can give us comment and say, yeah, you got it right, or no, you didn't. And the goals and a list of objectives are posted on the county website, which is mcgrowthpolicy.us. So we have goals that cover landscapes, communities, and livelihoods or economy.
Now, please, I'm always kind of the everyman here. I ask all the really dumb questions. So why did you do this study in the first place? I mean, obviously, we live in the county. We live every day. We drive to work. Why is this study important, and what exactly are you trying to accomplish with it?
So just like any household or business, usually you have a plan for what you're planning to do for the coming year or coming years.
Some people do.
I was going to say, my wife has a plan. John's along for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
In this case, it's the community's plan for what Missoula County should focus its efforts on, whether it's in terms of infrastructure development, community development, economic development. Where should we be putting our resources? We only have limited resources. Every entity does, whether it's your house or your business or the government. And this is the question: is what should the county be focusing on in the coming years?
So when you say resources, is this direct funding? Like,
it can affect budget priorities for the county commissioners.
Really?
And even particularly our agency, Community Planning Services, where we do community development work and planning. It can affect what we focus our attention on in the coming years.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the ideas, philosophy a little bit, like what are the goals? What's my motivation? But what does it mean when it actually gets to become a law? Is that the stage that you're in now, making changes to?
You're making policy.
Policy?
Right. This would be making policy, which would kind of establish the direction. It gives us a vision for where we want to go, and it's going to give us key goals, what we're striving for, and then it's going to set out some action plans. And the action plan is what those activities are.
When you say we,
right.
are you talking about the high muckety mucks up in the county government who sit in their golden thrones and wave their wands and say, "This is what we wish"? Or are you? I'm sure Gina's going, "What is he talking about?" Or are you talking about the rank and file folks who get up and go to work every day and drive past something and say, "Gee, I wish we could do this," or "Gee, I wish we could do that"? So are we looking at this whole thing all smushed together?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's at the county level, so it's setting goals for the county for where its resources should go, but that affects local communities. So if we hear that people are concerned about conflicting land uses in their communities, they have things developing next to one another that don't make sense, then that would probably come out in some goals for dealing with land use issues in communities, and might result in some action strategies that might be talking about mapping where appropriate uses should occur, or establishing criteria for how we identify where things should go in communities. There's a whole possible list of things that we could do.
I was a city planner when I was about 15 on a game called SimCity. And I remember you got your industrial zones, you got your commercial zones, you got your residential zones. So just for dumb guys like me, is that basically what we're talking about when you talk about planning? What sorts of things can go here and
That's
there?
one form of planning. That's land use planning. To some extent, we do some of that in the county, but we do lots of other things as well, because in some areas of the county, they're not particularly interested in doing detailed land use planning and are more interested in supporting local economic activity or and maybe restoration economies like up in the Sealy Swan area.
Yeah, we're going to take a break. We're up against a break. We have all three lines open. We have Karen and Callie are both with us here. Kaylee? Sorry, Karen and Kaylee are both with us here this morning. We're going to come right back because we want to put your opinions and ideas on the record. Okay, these lovely ladies are here to take your comments and place them in the public record so that you can actually help in this decision-making process. So if you have an idea, if you have a thought, the phones are starting to ring right now. Give us a call at 721-1290, and we'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talk Back. It's a Wednesday edition, and we're talking planning and really seriously looking for your opinions and your thoughts and feelings because Karen and Kaylee are both here to talk about this. They're from the county, and they're here to help. Wait. Let's get Jeannie on the line. Jeannie, good morning. You're on with Karen and Kaylee. Hi.
Hi. I have 4 things that I'd like to see.
All right.
For Missoula, and one of my suggestions for the Missoula growth policy would require working with the school district so that we don't continue to de-school our city. The smaller public schools are the heart of our neighborhoods. We need to keep the fairgrounds for mainly agricultural use and keep the racetrack for horse racing. We need to get rid of the road diets. These are a nightmare in my experience. And the city needs to throw that ICLEI handbook for road management in the Missoula County landfill.
Okay, now hold on a second, Jeannie. What is it, for those of us who are unschooled about what the ICLEI handbook says, what exactly does it say that personally makes you feel bad?
Well, I'm saying that because when John Engen, the mayor, used to come on your show.
Long ago, yes.
I can still remember.
use
Go
the
ahead.
Bickley Handbook for road management policy.
But that would be city.
And I don't like the road diet, so I wish he'd throw that book in the landfill.
So that's a city deal, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I don't know. Some of these things may, have to do with city and county.
Okay.
So that's why I'm bringing these up.
Okay.
And as a longtime Missoulian, my opinion is that we need to keep what has made Missoula a nice place to live instead of changing everything. For example, we do not need to incorporate infill into our neighborhoods. This has negatively affected our home. And thank you for listening.
Okay. Thanks, Jeannie.
Thanks for
Appreciate
your
it.
call, Jeannie.
All right. Now, let me ask you this. As Dr. Obvious would tell me that the city sits inside the county. Okay. So how do you guys split those apart so that the city does what the city does and the county does what the county does, even though the city's in the middle of the county? And I'm sure that there's probably a whole book to explain this. But if you guys could share that with us, that'd be great.
That's a great point. The city and the county are doing growth policies at the same time. In the past, we've done them together, but with the split of planning services between the city and the county, they're now being done as separate projects. But conveniently, we're doing them at the same time so we can share information. These were some great points. They may be more city-oriented, but we share that information back and forth. Our goal is to coordinate and try and make sure that we are, as much as possible, working with one another to achieve common goals and sometimes identifying some differences. So for the city, they're doing their growth policy focus on the city limits and a little ways on the outside, the wastewater service area. The county is focused on all of the county outside the city limits. So some of these things would be addressed more by the city, and I really would recommend that Jeannie get her comments to the cities, our Missoula project. And we will be sure to take some of these things into account as well. The fairgrounds is obviously a county asset. And working with school districts, that's really important. School districts often do their own planning processes, and finding ways to coordinate those with the county's work and the city's work. Good points.
I'm curious how similar or dissimilar are the plans? You said they worked on them before. Are you finding it's like copy paste? You look over each other. Oh, we came up with the same idea at the same time. It's amazing. We both invented calculus, or what? I mean, how does this work?
This has been a really new and different approach that we've taken in the recent years. Not in that we've always done a variety of community meetings and things like that, but this is the first time we've taken a comprehensive overview and looked at the whole thing and taken a fresh look. The county's growth policy before that had been a compilation of all of our existing planning documents. Missoula County has been planning since the 1970s, and in the city it's been happening longer than that. So we had kind of coordinated all that together, and we would go and check in with folks. Are we on the right track? Make some adjustments, but kind of kept the old stuff in check. In this case, both the city and the county have not thrown those out, but said we're going to take a fresh look. We're not going to start with the bulk of the old planning. We're gonna go out and talk to people and start fresh.
So you've been out, I think, already 2 days this week talking to folks about these issues, right?
That's correct.
What have you been thrown at? I mean, obviously we had Jeannie's call on air, but what other things? What comes up in these meetings as policies that people are concerned with, want to see changes, or?
So. And maybe Kaylee's been to at least one of the meetings.
Grab that microphone, Kaylee.
Yeah.
It's your turn, kiddo.
This is the rural landscape artist scientist. What is it?
No,
Scientist.
Go ahead, Karen.
One idea that had come up in the meetings I recall recently was that there's concerns about how permitting is done and whether or not it was streamlined and appropriate for the county. And it's a really good point. The county has been doing building permits for a number of years, and we've heard this before, and the county's in the process of overhauling its permitting process to make it as streamlined as possible. But that question about how much regulation is appropriate is always a question, and it's a good one for us to explore in this process.
Yeah. So Kaylee, what else have you noticed in the meetings and hearings and stuff?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I went to a meeting last evening. I didn't go to the one on Monday. But I would say some themes that are coming up pretty consistently have to do with economic development and really making sure that the rural communities aren't left behind with all the growth that's happening in the city, making sure those benefits are seen outside of the city limits.
When you say left behind, they want money generated from property taxes in the city or in other areas that are being developed to flow out to them? Is that?
I would just say more like making sure that industries are developing and providing jobs to these communities, not just jobs in Missoula, in the city of Missoula, and making sure that some of those economic benefits are really being spread around.
So that's a kind of phase one thing, right? So the phase two things are, how do you encourage that? And what are some of the policies that are being considered for that?
Yeah, I think Karen could probably speak to that.
I saw her jump up.
Well, tell you what, hang on to that because we're up against a break. I got to be the commercial sheriff here. 721-1290 is our number. Let's talk with Karen and Kaylee. Give them some ideas. If there's something you haven't heard yet that you live in maybe in the county surrounding the city limits and you're concerned about this or that and the other thing, give us a call at 721-1290 and we'll put your comments on the record. We'll be right back. This is Talk Back, and it's Wednesday, February 25th, and we are continuing right along. You're talking about the growth in the county and the plans thereof. We've got Karen Hughes and Kaylee Becher joining us here in the studio. We have a Facebook comment.
We do, but I think we should go back because Karen was like literally caught mid-jump. She looked like one of those animals you see that are, forged in time, about to catch their prey, but hanging on a wall somewhere. So I want to get back to her, let her finish her motion. We were talking about the phase two concept behind that, bringing businesses and industry and commercial activity to some of the rural areas of Missoula County. And I asked, what kind of things do we do to do that? And you were ready with an answer. So if you could.
So as we've talked about, there's a number of values that have come up. And one of those is our open spaces and working lands, and another is environment. So we know broadly that those protecting the environment and encouraging economic development are likely goals. We're testing that out. In terms of actions, here's where we get into diversity of opinions. Some people think we should be really taking advantage of forest lands and using the natural resources to really support building industry, rebuilding timber production, things like that. Other people think, no, the county should be focusing economic efforts on more restoration work, which is another economy that's been brewing out in rural areas, helping make sure that the forest roads and culverts are in good shape for the ones that are continuing to be in use, thinning and taking care of our forest lands to make sure that they last into future generations and aren't affected by beetle kill, wild and urban fire areas.
Well, you'd think those two would be able to go together simply because when you do thin and do work like that, you create timber, you create the job opportunities for the timber industry.
And sometimes they do overlap, but sometimes it's a matter of quantity too.
Sure, yeah.
And then there's another group who says, maybe not so much that, but maybe we should be focusing more on recreation industry and the recreation economy surrounding our wilderness and wildland areas, and not so much on taking products off of it. So
now, does some of that motorized use? I'm sure that there's a lot of multi-use folks like snowmobiles and dirt bikes and that sort of thing.
Exactly, right? all users. So that's an example
I'm sorry,
where...
John, go ahead.
Said more importantly, golf courses.
Yes,
exactly.
That's one I care about.
So there you have, you have environment, you have industry and economy, and what should the county focus its efforts on? All of these things, some of these things more than others? That's kind of the question.
And is it kind of a majority rules type thing? Then whoever gets the most votes? Or let me put it this way. Despite what the citizenry might say and these popular opinions, do the folks who are in the know higher up in the county say, really appreciate what they said, but, just looking at it from the top down, these are the things we really need to address?
So
a little bit of both.
I think there's a little bit of balance in there. We have many years, as I said, of planning and a number of efforts that have gone in over the years. We pay attention to what people have said historically. We pay a lot of attention to what we hear. So those who show up and participate, we certainly hear those folks.
The world belongs to those who show up, right?
And then ultimately the commissioners make the call, and then they balance all these things, including other established priorities for the county.
Now, you had a Facebook comment.
Yes, Katie says, it sounds as if the city/county is attempting to assert control over property owners in deciding what to do with their property. So I guess that's got to be kind of partly true, right? Because if you're making rules about what can and can't go on certain property, you are kind of delineating what property rules the public abides by,
Or
right?
are you dealing primarily with publicly owned property rather than private property?
Well, there's that kind of goes with an assumption that there aren't any rules affecting property already, and there are a number of them, and not all of them are governed by the city and the county. Sure. There's a number of different tax laws that affect
zoning stuff.
There's zoning, there's building permits. There's a whole host of different things that affect how people can use their property. Land use planning is a possible, more detailed land use planning is a possible outcome of growth policy work. It's not the only option.
Okay, let's get to the phone and say good morning to Catherine. Good morning, Catherine. You're on with Karen and Kaylee. Hi.
Okay, I've heard discussions of a proposal over the last few years to combine the city-county government with the city being the primary governmental entity. Is that part of your discussion at all? And I'm curious where you see agriculture, specifically cattle ranches and specifically land that has been used for agriculture for a long time, how you see that as being, whether it would be even allowed anymore. Given what you said about whether products should be taken off of land and cattle and food.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. When you have a bunch of cattle roaming the meadow, it's kind of difficult to have a golf course in there. You know what I mean?
That's true.
But you have the discs provided by nature, so that's a plus.
Whatever. So, what do you think, Karen? I mean,
so the first question about a proposal to combine city and county government, I guess I haven't heard that at all raised in any of the meetings that we've gone to. Again, we're focusing our efforts more outside the city limits than inside. Maybe they've heard something different in the city efforts. In my experience, actually, if anything, there's been a little bit more separation recently of city and county. We used to have a combined planning services office, and the city has its own planning services offices, and the county has its own.
Can you explain why they did that?
The city wanted a particular arrangement of their planning services, a particular kind of shop where people could come in and get a variety of services. And the county didn't want to do it in exactly the same way. We have a one-stop shop, but it's more of an electronic version of a one-stop shop instead of us co-locating our different personnel. And so it was just a different approach.
So I got to ask you, does that mean less money for both? And I mean, do you feel it's a good decoupling, or is it the same? Is it worse? I mean, you work there. You probably know better than we do.
I'm not sure if it's better or worse. I think there are benefits to having services combined in that there's some overlap in the kinds of work that we do, that there's some efficiency that you may lose a little bit. But in terms of providing services that are appropriate to more rural areas of the county, I think the county is maybe a bit more in tune with that.
Okay, real quick, what about the whole cattle situation, the livestock situation?
That's a great question. Agriculture is a high priority. It's in the Montana Constitution as an obligation for the county to protect and enhance agriculture. And it's come out strong in values so far. We love our working landscapes. That includes working forests and working cattle ranches and farms. And we are looking for ideas about how to best protect those areas while also protecting people's rights to use their property as much as they wish to.
Hey, Catherine, thanks for the call. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get Dennis on, and we have 2 lines open for you if you want to visit with Karen and Kaylee about your ideas for county planning. These are actually writing these down. They're going to go into the record, and you'll be part of this whole survey. 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. We'd love to have you give us a call this morning. We're actually taking your comments and putting them on the official record for Missoula County. Karen Hughes and Kaylee Becher both here with us from the county planning department. And let's see, Dennis. Hold on, you're covered up. Okay. Dennis, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, folks. Well, I was giving my age away. I was back on the planning committee back in the late 70s, early 80s. And
that means you're a young guy to me, kiddo.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm a little older than you are.
Go ahead.
But I was on these committees, and my wife and I decided, well, let's get involved. And she got on one committee, and I got on the environmental committee. Well, I didn't fit in because I was just a Missoula County High School graduate and a logger.
Uh-oh.
And
we know what that means.
oh, yeah. And all their flowery ideas, we had more college degrees sitting in that room with all their ideas and questions. They asked me what I thought should be done, and I said, well, all the ideas you guys have put out, one question I want to know, how many people can the greater Missoula Bitterroot Valley hold? We can stack 1 million people in here, but what kind of an environment will we have? After that, I was ostracized right off the committee.
Wow.
Well, what was your end game with that? I mean, were you thinking of ways to try to control population growth in Missoula?
Well, not just a control, but a reasonable growth rate. We don't want an L.A. here, do we?
Well, it's size-wise, it's impossible. We have a little tiny bowl of a valley, and it's a limited amount of space here. So
yeah, and we already get to feel what the traffic's like. So,
but yeah, I mean, we got it. There's enough land space. We can stack a lot of people in here, and Engen and that group seem to want to stack more people in all the time.
Well, there's a lot of infill going on and that sort of thing. Yeah, I understand.
And to my thing is, how many people can we really have and still have a good livable environment? And that was my question, and nobody wanted to answer it.
Well, do you have any suggestions for these nice ladies here that they can write down in their book and put into the record?
Well, just my question is, I would like to see it answered somehow.
Well, we'll pose it to them. Thanks for your call.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So,
and
do we have, when it comes to population size, I mean, are there limits? Is that a factor when you guys are considering density?
So the county's approach to planning for growth in the future has been not to set a limit or to identify carrying capacity, although there have been historically some carrying capacities done in some different parts of the county. Really, our approach has been to say, so how fast are we growing? How many people are we looking at in the future? And how can we best plan for where those people live, work, and play? And right now we're 1% to 2% growth rate annually, and we're really thinking ahead for what that might look like on the landscape. As everyone knows, there's kind of a balancing act. If you go with the approach that you can only handle so many people, then you are going to put some strict regulations into effect to figure out how those communities grow. And a lot of our population doesn't like comprehensive, strict planning regulations.
And when we talk about that 1% to 2% growth in Missoula County, where are you seeing the growth? Is it all across the board, or certain areas growing faster? Are some areas losing population?
I think a lot of it is actually focused more in the urban area around the city limits. There is some growth out in the outlying areas, but it's really been focused more on the
we played that game. As close as you can get to the city without having to deal with all the extra regulations. It's kind of
and the extra taxes.
We missed the dart by just a little bit, and we're like across the street from being in the county.
Another issue that comes up with putting limits on growth is dealing with housing and affordability of housing so you may be affecting your natural resource base, but you're creating housing limitations or housing issues.
Well, the problem with Missoula County as opposed to, say, Flathead or Gallatin County, those are both huge, enormous, basins, basically, where you're able to stretch out for miles and miles and miles. In Missoula County, it's completely different. In the Missoula area, we have a small area, and that makes every little piece of ground that much more valuable. So when you talk about open space and soccer fields and baseball fields and that sort of thing, those are all well and good, but that makes the average home that much more expensive to purchase. And so with that, you're going to have subsidized housing. You're going to have, it just becomes this morass of, what do we do to try to balance all this? And so can we talk about that when we come back?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back. And we have Sherry who's on the line. We're going to get you on. We have 2 lines open, 721-1290. We're coming right back. We're talking Talk Back, and we've got guests in studio from the county, Karen Hughes and Kaylee Becher, both joining us. Now, I kind of went off a little bit on affordable housing and the lack of land and that sort of thing. So Karen, help me out here. What kind of things is the county doing in the sphere of their influence to try to ameliorate this, make it a little bit easier for folks, if that's even possible?
Okay, Robert.
Sure. The county actually does a lot of work in terms of affordable housing through managing community development block grants, and the county's community grants and programs department does a lot of that sort of work. In terms of planning, we have a tendency to take a step back, and we talk about thinking about where new subdivision, new development should go. Where is it appropriate? Where is it less appropriate? Finding ways to facilitate different housing types that are appropriate to meet all the needs of our community. We have people who vacation here and want places to stay, but we also have people who have everyday jobs who need to be able to afford the places they live in. And we have it's different in different areas. What happens in the urban area is different than what the needs are out in the Swan or down in Lolo. People have different needs, and we need to kind of think about how those all wrestle together to come up with some sort of overall strategy.
Okay, let's get back to the phone. Let's say good morning to Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Well, mine's just kind of a personal complaint, but the requirement that is presently there that you have to have landscaping around every business is just frustrating to me. Somebody ought to have brains enough to see that some lots are just not big enough for landscaping. My best way to explain this is to give an example.
All right.
I love to eat at Romeo's, but that dumb strip of grass through the middle of their parking lot makes it nigh impossible for me to get my pickup in there and get it turned around and get back out of there.
I understand what you mean.
And he tells me it's a requirement that he have this dumb piece of grass there. It doesn't make any sense at all, and it certainly isn't helping businesses, and it doesn't make it, and let me tell you, it's not more beautiful by the time I get through cussing it, getting back out of there. So it ought to make some sense to somebody to look and see there's some places just aren't feasible for landscaping.
Well, these folks are from the planning office, so let me ask you about this. Do you guys, and I'm not sure if you ladies actually deal specifically personally with what she's talking about, but do members of your staff actually go out to the business, take a look at it, do some measurements, and is it possible to make you're right, that would not work here. I mean, is it possible to get a variance and things like that?
That's a great question. The city, this is actually in the city limits, and they have their own zoning code, so I can't really speak to that.
Right.
The county also has a zoning code. It's mostly only in effect in the urban area around the city. It doesn't apply in most of the outlying areas of the county. Most of the area in the county is not zoned, so we don't actually deal with landscaping issues in unzoned areas at all. In the county, our zoning resolution dates back to the 1970s, so it's a little bit old.
It's groovy.
It is less than groovy. It needs to be groovified, perhaps.
Groovified. I like that.
Ameliorate that, Peter.
It really needs to be assessed to come into the modern era. We definitely hear people who are trying to develop in the zoned area of the county who say, this doesn't make any sense, whether it's the use issues or what the design standards are. That's on the docket as a high priority project for the county. It's not underway quite yet, but we are looking at the possibility of, for those areas that are zoned for where this does apply, taking a fresh look and making sure that what's there works. And as a great example, building in flexibility where that's appropriate. So if your lot is somehow encumbered, but it makes sense to have the use there, then finding ways to deal with those standards that may not make sense in every situation. There is always the variance.
Thanks, Sherry.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have to go to county commissioners for a variance, right?
Variances actually go to the Board of Adjustment.
I've been to the Board of Adjustment.
Really?
I have been to the Board of Adjustment.
This is not a chiropractor. This is something else.
These are a group of people. Actually, they're volunteers, right? I mean,
that's correct. It's a volunteer board appointed by the commissioners.
And do they crack their knuckles?
No.
Kind of like,
not
look
ever.
at you. No?
They're actually very nice people, and they have tough decisions to make.
They do. Yeah. And they're really limited and hampered by the code that we have in place, so that's definitely...
Tell you what, let's take our last break. We have a 1 minute timeout, so Robert, I want to give you plenty of time to get your comment in, and so Karen and Gail only going to be with us for another 8 minutes, so if you have a question or a comment, we have a Facebook comment, we're coming right back. And we're back on Talkback at 721-1290. Now let's go right back to the phone real quickly because I promised Robert we'll get him on. Robert, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question about the Pink Panther down on Russell.
All right.
Why is that in the county? It's my understanding that if a piece of property is completely encircled by the city, it automatically is annexed to the city, but that's not the case with the Pink Panther. It's county property.
It's the Pink Grizzly, by the way.
Cannot respond there. The city fire department cannot respond there, yet they do. They pay absolutely no taxes. I'm kind of interested in what's going on down there. No taxes whatsoever.
Yeah, that's the Pink Grizzly, by the way.
Yes.
But anyway, so what is the deal? I've often wondered about that myself. It's kind of like a special.
The only reason they could sell fireworks is they're out of the county.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So thanks for the call, Robert. So what do you think, ladies, or do you know anything about that?
So this is a question about annexation policy, and that's really a prerogative of the city. I'm less in tune with how those decisions
but they
are made.
in the county, right?
They are in the county.
Okay.
But it's the city makes the choice of where they annex property and where they don't. They don't get automatically annexed, even if they're surrounded and it's been deemed okay to annex. There's certain kinds of property the city can't automatically annex. I think industrial lands and agricultural lands.
Yeah, because they are considered agricultural.
I'm looking at the city's explanation of that right now. And they say that these operations are all zoned and used for, and they also mention in this the Roseburg Forest Products and the Monrock Gravel operation in the subheading here. But they say they are all used for agriculture, mining, or industry by the county and cannot be annexed into the city without petition of the property owners.
But they do pay county taxes, right?
They do pay
okay.
county
Yeah,
taxes.
they don't pay no taxes.
That's right. They pay county taxes.
Everybody pays
and some of those taxes go to the city.
Despite how wonderful and glorious and lovely the Klaus family is, they still have to pay taxes. So, but anyway, and there are nice people, by the way. Let's get to Sally on the line. Sally, you're on. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. I live right next to Cold Spring School, and you talked a little bit about the school districts and how they kind of do their own thing. From what I understand, and I haven't seen the complete plan that's going to go to the taxpayers, is a school mill levy, but from what I understand, they plan to totally raise the whole thing, and there's 6 acres there, and I'm wondering if there's any control from the county if they're going to put in, like, the cluster housing right in the middle of this pretty rural, neighborhood. So just wondering if you have any feedback on that.
Okay, let's ask him. So, ladies, what have you heard about Cold Spring School, and if that is going to be razed, R-A-Z-E-D, and they're going to put a new school there, are there any plans in place that you know of to do any other housing or that sort of thing there?
I have not heard anything about the school's plans at this point. Just like other property owners, they're a property owner, and although they're also a governmental entity and have to go through whatever processes if they want to change the use of their property and sell it for something that they're obligated to work with the public through a process. But ultimately, as a property owner, they have certain rights to be able to transfer property, and it can be redeveloped potentially.
So go get Facebook.
Yeah, we got a Facebook question. This is from Kitty. She says, "Is there a growth overdevelopment in the Miller Creek area? How does the building surge industry have some responsibility for the only one access without making the taxpayers pay for it? Who is going to pay for the new students in the area without another tax bond because Cold Spring and Chief Charlo cannot handle anymore? We are taxed to death with all the improvements," and she puts improvements in quotes, "when the builders know the loopholes." So, talking from Miller Creek area here. I live up in the Miller Creek area.
Which, by the way, some of it is in the city and some of it's in the county.
And it's a little fun ride. You got those two ways to go down. If there's a wreck on that little roundabout, you're pretty much toast.
Yeah, pretty
unless you kind of go the back way through the South Hills.
So the Miller Creek area, you're right. It's a combination of city and county jurisdiction. It's I believe for the most part it's actually zoned, so they've determined what the land uses and densities can be in that area, and in order to exceed that level of development, they would have to go through some sort of process. So the planning is already kind of in effect for that area, and certainly communities go back and relook at those plans and see if they're appropriate. In most cases, people don't usually downzone or reduce the amount of densities. Sure. Usually you go up. Yeah. But it has happened. There are certain areas in the county that have, or the states that have had that happen.
Want to get as much in as we can. We only have 3 minutes left in the show. So, Andy, real quickly, what's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, calling from Ravalli County, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Karen and say a lot of people here in Ravalli County really miss her presence. She was a real asset to us, and I'm sorry she's lost to Missoula, but I'm glad she's down there rather than out of the state.
Well, basically, it's because we decided to give her the big bucks here in Missoula.
I wish that was the case.
Andy, thanks for the call.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it. So there you go. So you have some fans out there in Ravalli County.
Who knew? Yeah. Well, I gotta give props to any government official that's willing to come on Talk Back. I mean, it could be crazy in here sometimes. You never know what's going to happen. People might make funny jokes.
Anyway,
it's awkward.
All right, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. We got a question here from Jeannie. Are Kaylee and Karen familiar with the Agenda 21 plan of changing our nation's cities? If they are familiar with the tenets of the planning espoused by the above, are they or others incorporating these into Missoula's growth policy?
So Agenda 21 is really part of a United Nations initiative that went through in 1992.
It was actually addressed in the legislature this week. So,
yes, it has been for the last several sessions.
And
I
died.
think.
So anyway, go ahead.
So it is true that Agenda 21 really encouraged local planning efforts to move forward as a way to protect all the resources that everyone in the world values: clean water, clean air, things like that. This isn't part of that. This is a local planning effort that builds on the last 30 or 40 years of planning in Missoula County. So we've been planning since the 70s. Agenda 21 happened in 1992. And although, we believe in according to our communities, in the importance of natural resources and local economies and communities that have good places for people to live, it's not really about the United Nations effort, more about what local folks want and care for their communities for the future.
And they look smashing in their blue helmets, by the way, just so you know.
Which they left at the door. All right. Now, we have less than a minute to go. If folks want to get in touch with you and give more input, is there another meeting coming up, or what can they do if they've already missed the meetings? So, Kaylee, or go ahead, Karen, either one. Quickly.
Yes, there are meetings throughout the county the rest of this week and next week, and you can go on our website to get the schedule for that.
And the website is?
www.mcgrowthpolicy.us. And you can go to that website and submit comments online and answer the targeted survey questions at any time. And we would like those by March 13th, but you can definitely go on there.
Thank you, ladies, for coming in. We appreciate it. Hope you had a good time. What's coming up tomorrow, John?
Tomorrow, we'll have John Koppas from Mountain Water Company on, talking about issues with Mountain Water Company. I don't know. I guess there's something going on with the city of Missoula.
Something. I don't know what it is.
But something.
You guys have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow morning.